2022 was an interesting year for indie games, with some long-awaited titles finally seeing release, and a number of narrative games in particular experiencing a strong showing alongside the usual eclectic mix of releases. Here are what I consider to be the 5 best indie games of 2022. At number 5 we have Chained Echoes, a fantasy jrpg that was released during the last month of the year. The game sees you take control of a party of characters whose goal is to prevent the deployment of a weapon of mass destruction and bring peace to the land. This was probably the biggest surprise of the year for me, as I am not really a fan of JRPGs due to the various mechanics that these games tend to adhere to that I just don't get on with. Chained Echoes, though, eschews most of these with fast combat that uses a really well designed overdrive system which asks the player to keep a gauge within a certain range to boost damage and avoid taking more damage. This makes combat about more than just using all the strong actions to win, and kept me engaged in battles. Alongside that is a well realised and interesting world, great characters and an engaging story full of political intrigue as well as more personal stories and fun side quests. It's a fairly long game as you would expect from a JRPG. After 10 hours of dutifully following the main story in Act 1, the game throws the shackles off in Act 2, giving you an airship and allowing you to just explore the continent. It's so big that I've yet to finish it, which is why Chained Echoes only sits at number 5. If I had managed to finish the game, it would probably be sitting much higher on this list. The 4th best indie game of the year is a title that I think has been forgotten about a bit due to coming out right at the beginning of 2022. Nobody Saves the World is a fun action RPG whose unique hook is that you don't pick a class to play. Rather, you can swap and mix and match skills from a variety of classes, 15 in total, that you unlock as you play the game. These classes are not your usual fare either, ranging from standard wizards and warriors to dragons and even slugs. This fluidity to your character build allows you to create some really interesting combinations and keeps combat feeling fresh, which is good because the game can become a bit grindy at times with most quests involving clearing a dungeon and little else. Outside of combat, the world you explore has a colourful cartoon-like look to it, with a sprinkling of the usual drink box flair that you expect from their games. The story is fairly standard, but has some good jokes thrown in and does enough to drive the player along, but it's the combat and mix and match class system where the game really shines. I had a lot of fun with Nobody Saves the World, and whilst I see how the game might be a bit too grindy for some, for me it managed to strike the perfect balance and provide a fun and enjoyable time. Sitting at number 3 is Norco, a point-and-click adventure game that reminds me quite a bit of Kentucky Route Zero, one of my favourite games of all time, due to its surreal nature and well-constructed story. Set in the swamps of southern Louisiana, the game starts out with you looking for your lost brother, before spiralling into a more wide-ranging mystery that sees you discovering more about your family's past, exploring occults, and taking part in eco-terrorism. The story is engaging and really well told, with you meeting a broad range of interesting characters that help flesh out the story and make the world feel alive, and it's all backed up by some lovely painterly pixel art. Norco does a lot of things right and is one of the best point-and-click adventure games to come out in recent years, but for a few niggles with some gameplay elements and a slightly unsatisfactory ending, it could have been vying for the top spot. Just missing out on number 1 is another narrative-heavy game, Beacon Pines, a title in which you play the role of Luca, who finds themselves involved in investigating the strange goings-on that have been slowly enveloping the town, but nobody else seems to be taking notice of. What this narrative game does that makes it stand out is that you are retelling the story from the point of view of a narrator, and at certain points you'll be able to influence the outcome of situations by applying words to a sentence. Which word you use could help you get further towards the truth, push you down the wrong path, or even result in your character's death. This system leads to a really interesting situation where you know more about what is going on than the characters in the story, and the game is able to play with that, creating a more engaging and appealing story than if it had just played out in the normal way. You can find yourself going quite far down some paths before coming right back to near the beginning and seeing things from a totally different perspective now that you know more about what is going on in the town. Alongside this weaving story are a collection of characters that I really fell in love with, and that the game does a good job of bringing to life. The central relationship between Luca and their best friend Rolo is especially well done, and the linchpin around which the whole story revolves. The game is not afraid to go to some dark places either and tackle some difficult issues. Whilst you could complain about the lack of real choice within the narrative, I don't think that is an issue, and a good story doesn't always need to include player agency. Beacon Pines then is a real triumph, telling a story in a new and unique way with great characters and a world in which I love being a part of. A truly wonderful game. However, whilst I really like Beacon Pines, it was not able to top my favourite game of 2022, The Spirit and the Mouse. This game came right out of left field and was something I spotted on Twitter with the tagline that it was the warmest game that person had played since A Short Hike, which is very high praise in my book, as A Short Hike is a brilliant game. Set within the French town of Saint-Éclair, The Spirit and the Mouse sees the player take control of the titular mouse Lily, who upon getting struck by lightning during a storm, must help Lumion, the spirit guardian, return to the sky so that he can continue watching over the town and provide it with electricity. To do this, you must explore the town and help people out in order to create enough joy to provide Lumion with the power they need to blast back into the sky. Using your newfound powers, you explore the town, helping people out and meeting the Kiblings, a cast of mischievous energy sprites who are wonderfully realised, and just thinking about them makes me feel all warm inside. Each area you visit has been well constructed to allow Lily to explore all the various nooks and crannies in order to complete her objectives and send Lumion back home. Whenever I sat down to play this game, I felt a wave of warmth and calm spreading over me. It is the definition of a cosy game, and the game this year that just made me feel happy, and for that reason it sits at the top of my list of best indie games for 2022. So there we have it, the top 5 games of 2022. Do you agree, or are there some titles you think I've missed? Why don't you let me know in the comments below. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing as it really helps the channel. Thanks for watching, I'll see you again next time.